Welcome to the Legal Edge podcast. This is your host, Trevor White,
Shane Smith.
and today's topic, we're talking about creation from the pit. ... Right? Sounds doom. Sounds like almost gloom and doom. The pit.
It does. And what do you mean by pit, Trevor?
Well, the pit is basically what it is. The place where all creation happens, which sounds abstract and weird, but really the pit is your darkness, right? The pit is when life's not working. The pit is when things are not going the way you want them to go. The pit is when you get served divorce papers. The pit is when your business isn't making money and your back's up against the wall. The pit is when your health is falling to shit because you haven't taken care of your body and you don't know what to do. It's really that environment. And this is why we call it a pit, right? If you think about a pit, what is a pit? Right? It's a pit.
Yeah, it's a hole in the ground, right?
Yeah, and you look around, you just see pit walls. And really, most of the time, pits look so many different ways. And like, it's really when you've lost kind of hope about the future. You can't see anything except the shit that's in front of you. The things in front of you that are causing problems for you, right? The things in front of you that are not working, the things that are not happening. It's basically the trials in life. The things that when you have a plan, I'm going plan A and here I go, and then it doesn't work. And you feel like you've exhausted all your options and the world seems like it's down on you and you can't figure it out. You feel stupid, you feel dumb, you feel stuck, you feel like you failed, and you sit in that environment. And now like this is the place people find themselves in is the pit. Right?
Yeah. Along that line, though, does everybody you talk to always want out of the pit? Because my experience is a lot of people seem to like that. They like being in the pit. Does that make sense? They like their back against the wall, and it seems like they almost create their own pits a lot of times.
Oh, for sure, you create your own pit. Interesting way of you said that. I don't know that I've ever met someone that likes their pit. What I've met is people that don't realize their pit. They don't even know that that's what's happening because they numb it.
All right. Yeah.
So they sedate around it. So they see that they're in a pit, but they won't admit they're in a pit. And so instead of dealing with what's happening, right? It's like if your marriage is just in a shit show, and the one thing you need to do to fix it would be like invest in your marriage and, take them on dates and show them that you love them and bring them gifts and like actually devote yourself to this person. But what I've watched happen is because that seems too hard and scary and whatever, for some reason, right? Guys specifically will do the opposite. They'll withdraw, they'll go have an affair, they'll go to porn, right? They'll do all of these things that pull them away. And then they'll go to alcohol, they'll go to drugs, they'll go to food, they'll go to all of these things to numb them from actually looking at it. And I think that's the biggest problem with identifying, because it's like another way of saying pit is your darkness.
Yeah.
It's the things you want to avoid, right? It's the things you don't want to look at. It's the things inside your closet. The boogeyman's in there. Well, I don't want to open my closet because there's the boogeyman inside the closet. If I open the closet, the boogeyman's going to come out. So I'm going to pretend like the boogeyman's not there.
I was going to say, you have to admit it's not working, right? I mean, that's part of it is you have to face facts and admit, hey, this is not working for me at this point in my life, right? Whatever that is.
Yeah, which means another way of saying I failed.
Yeah.
Like that I'm less than, I didn't do it right. I screwed this up. And there's too many of us that don't want to admit that. We don't. And so that's what I've found. I've never seen somebody who likes their pit or they enjoy it, but you'd think they would.
Because they keep coming back to it over and over.
They just live there and they're like, I love it down here in the pit, and they're throwing mud in their face and blah, blah, blah. But it's just because they're pretending. They're pretending that that's what they want. They're pretending that getting drunk every single night is actually what they want to do. They're pretending that that's part of the game. Well, it's just what you do as an attorney. That's just what you do. It's just how it goes. Happy hour starts whenever I decided it starts. And it starts on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Saturday and Sunday, those 2 days, and Friday night. Woo! That's more than happy hour. That's happy knock me out. Like that's happy disconnected completely from reality and then back into it, right? And you just this cycle continues forever. So I think you bring up a great point though, because in order to do anything about the pit that you find yourself in, you have to admit it. Right? You have to acknowledge that you're in a pit.
And
Like
it's
I
not
sat there.
working, and you got to
Oh
do
yeah,
something else.
you have to, right? And I spent a lot of time in the bottom of a rum bottle denying my pit, just completely denying that it was there. My wife leaving me, my child passing away, my business completely being destroyed, me losing my house, watching my cars get repoed. I still remember what that feels like. To sit there and watch the freaking the truck or whatever the oh my heavens, the tow truck with the
Yeah.
flatbed coming in, pulling over, and then just pulling my cars up, and I'm just sitting there looking at my car, and I'm like, and it just drives away. And then I still had one car after I'd lost my house, and I'm living in my parents' house because I didn't have anywhere else to go. My wife was already checked out. She's already like, dude, I'm out of here, asshole. You've turned into something I can't even experience. But the whole time, guess what? All I was doing was the bottom of a bottle. I was pretending. I'm literally pretending. I was still pretending that I was the guy. Like I was the guy pretending. I would dress the right way. I would put the right things on. I'd get the right watch on my wrist. I would do all these things, and I had negative in my bank account. I had no money. I hadn't paid a bill and for who knows how long. The only reason I had food is because my parents were giving me food. Like one time, my brother literally had to come over and he like did that. This the secret whatever, but it wasn't really a secret because I caught him. But he was like dropping off all this food. Like I was that guy. Like but I was pretending. I was pretending. I was good. No, I'm good. I'm good. But it got to this point, and I had one car left. I had one car left. Way too expensive of a car. I should not have had that car at this point in my life. No chance that I did. I shouldn't have had the car. I'm sitting there, and then I still remember watching that car get repoed. I'm sitting there. I'm sitting in my parents' house in Perry, Utah. Perry, Utah. And I'm sitting there. My car's parked out front. There was no room in the garage, or maybe my car wouldn't have been repoed. I knew it was going to get repoed at some point. I hadn't paid for the thing in like 8 or 9 months. Hadn't paid a single payment on the thing. Wasn't even paying insurance. I'm driving around this thing with no insurance, got any money. But this dump truck comes up, or not dump truck, tow truck comes up, lowers it down, and I could still see. I could see my parents' little shed there on the side that was like behind the car. They go pick the car up. It scraped the front end because that car was a little bit lower, and they actually jacked it up when they towed it. But at that point, I didn't care, right? I'm like, it's freaking not even my car anymore. And they pulled, put it up on the thing, and I just sit there and I don't sign anything. It's nothing. I mean, there's nothing to sign. The banks are saying, hey, I want my damn car back. It's a really nice car that you've basically stolen from us. And I'm like, yeah, but I've got to drive it all the time. It was great. So then the car goes, and that was a moment at which I'm like, I don't know what to do. And in that moment, there was this rum bottle didn't numb it. For the first time, it didn't go away, right? So the alcohol, the way I was using to sedate it, I had this moment of realization, this moment of like, holy shit. But what's crazy is it still didn't fix it. I still tried to sedate and numb it, right? My parents had this old green truck. It was a Dodge something, like this two-wheel drive, manual transmission, just single cab, old truck. And so it was like a farm truck. And
Yeah.
I don't even think it was street safe at all. But I had to drive it because it was the only thing I had. It would overheat after like 10 minutes of driving it. You had to stop on the side of the road. It was like brutal. And I didn't know what to do. So I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. My wife's gone. I had no money. I had nothing. I had nothing. Literally, I'd sold anything of any worth. Even being able to come up and say, well, I look at these cool watches and look at this cool life that I have. I didn't even have that anymore because I sold everything. Because that's how I was trying to still like stay alive and try to pretend. And it was really, I was trying to pretend. And honestly, I was trying to feed my habit of alcohol to sedate from the feeling. And so I had to pay for that somehow. But I lost everything. I didn't have anything. And I'm driving that parents' truck, and I ended up getting a job at Walmart. Nothing wrong with Walmart. Walmart, people work at Walmart. There's nothing wrong with them. But I get a job at the Walmart distribution center for like 19 bucks an hour, 18 bucks an hour, something like that. And I could get this piece rate. I worked in the freezer. I literally got frostbite in my freezer because I couldn't afford the boots you have to buy. They're like these super insulated type of boots. I couldn't afford them. I didn't have the money, so I just wore regular shoes with like 4 socks. And that literally with the first day I got frostbite because the freezer is like sub 20. It's like negative 20 in the warehouse there. So it's like I'm like in the freaking Arctic basically with just shoes and some socks, some cheap ass white socks. So my toe is still jacked up from that. That was freaking 25 years ago. My toe is still in a big problem. It still affects when it gets cold. I have to anyhow. So that's all going on in this pit, and I'm still not willing to look at what you're talking about, Shane. So this is what's crazy because people will say, well, dude, you must like it. You must like your pit because you keep doing everything to put yourself in it. You're doing nothing to save yourself. You're doing nothing to, and I get it. I'm painting like a really deep pit, Like, this is the deepest, darkest pit I'd ever been in my entire life. And there's many pits I've been in, but this one illustrates it the greatest about how stupid we are. Like, we as human beings, we just won't see it. And so I sat there and I'm not seeing it, not seeing it. And then I see it, but I don't want to admit it, I see it. And so then that carries on, that carries on, that carries on until one day that stupid Dodge truck literally breaks down and won't run anymore. So now I have no way to get to the Walmart distribution center. And what's worse than that, I hadn't had a W-2 job and that was a W-2 job. So the truck breaks down and then I go to get my paycheck. This is like, it's the irony or the God's way of saying, dude, get it, like, figure this out. My truck breaks down. I get my paycheck for that week and it's like 40% of what it's supposed to be. And I'm like, what the hell? And I go look at it and I go look at the stub on the paycheck and there's a garnishment on there.
Oh,
So all of my debts and all the shit that I'd run away from to pretend it wasn't there, one of them had found me somehow in that way. And they found out I had a job at the Walmarts where they could now garnish the wage. So now I didn't even have enough money to do it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I didn't have, I mean, it was, I can't imagine a more rock bottom place that I ever been. I mean, it was just life, but that was the turning point for me. I had to hit, we've all heard us hit rock bottom, right? That's the pit. That's the deepest pit I've ever been in. But from that place, there's one thing that I think is cool about the pit. Once you can admit it, once you can identify, once you open the closet and you let the boogeyman come out, you now have something that you can fight against. You have something that you can do because you admit, I've been humbled down to the most humble I could possibly be, right? There was no ego involved anymore. I got out of my own way and I was able to just be like, okay, what do I actually want? I'm still young. It's not like my life was over unless I ended it. Right, and the way I was going, I was on a fast track path to doing that for sure. My liver could not continue to handle what I was doing to it for sure. I was aging myself like crazy, my heart, everything else. Right, so but inside of that, it's like when you're in the pit, there's only one way to go. There's one place to go, right, and that's up. So it didn't take much to improve a little bit.
yeah.
Right, a little bit. It's not like and it's noticeable because I'm such in this place, in this dark place. And one thing that I've learned over the years since that day and the many pits along the way, because the hard part is this, it's not like once you get out of a pit, you're never going to get back into a pit again. You know, you're not going to probably get in the same pit. I'll never be in that same pit again.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's pray that I learned some lessons, right, from that one back then. But like we look at this and it's like, what I saw was that this is really where creation came from. Because from that place, once I could admit it and see it and be honest with myself, that I actually now had a shot to build a life I wanted. Right. And there's like a bajillion steps in between how that process happens. And I mean, it's one of the things we coach on heavily here at the Legal Edge, because it's that process of being able to get results, take action, regardless of circumstance.
Right.
Your world could be burning down around you, but can you still get results? Can you still push the needle forward? And in fact, not only can you, but you have to. You have to employ, right? There was no other option. So when you find yourself backed in this wall, and that's what it was for me, it was like this guide, but you start to have vision. You can start to actually see what you really want, and because you can see what you don't want, right? You look around you into the pit walls, but this is a huge one with needing other people. There was no way I got out of that pit alone. No chance. Because all I saw were pit walls.
Right? Yeah. And I want to ask you a question about that, right? So, we talk about, so was it one thing that changed that got you out of there? Or was it a lot of little tiny steps? In other words, comparing hitting the grand slam versus singles.
Yeah, no, there was no way I was hitting the grand slam. It was micro things every day. And every moment in some cases. And it was these little adjustments that I started to make towards something new. And I was just trying to get out of the pit. I wasn't trying to build a great life at that point, right? When I was in that dark pit there, it was like, I just needed to get out of the pit. I needed to get to a place of calm, peace, figure something out to where my life wasn't just a train wreck, a pure fire everywhere. But it was simple little moves forward. Hard part is all I could see is pit walls, which is why it required someone else to help show me, right? It helps someone else. This is what happens when guys in business will get stuck. You
Yeah.
get stuck with your firm. There's no growth there because now your pit may not be as dark as what I just described, right? It may not be that deep of a pit. Maybe you're not at that rock bottom, or maybe you just aren't admitting it. See, because one thing that happens a lot of times is if I had admitted the pit I was in 12 to 24 months before I was where I just described, I would have avoided all of that. All of it. I wouldn't have gone down that road. And I think this is the lie that we tell ourselves too, is because we sit in this place where we're like, listen, I'm okay. I'm good. Things are okay, right? I'm doing all right. It's not that bad. My wife doesn't hate me. Yeah, we're never intimate and whatever, but like, it's fine. I gave her all this money. I made all this money for her. So she has this money. We're good. We're good. It's this lie. You're deceiving yourself. But the slope, I didn't see it. I couldn't see it. It was so arrogant. And I had nobody around me trying to help me. No one was coming in trying to poke a hole in my reality and say, hey, Trevor, wake up, bro. If you keep doing this, this is going to be where you end up. And so, no, I had nobody there. So I backslid all the way down. Many people. I've got friends from high school who are still in that place.
I was going to say, you compare that, you might know my story where I got stuck, and I was fortunate in the sense that, I was stuck there for about 5 years. I wasn't growing, and it started to eat away at me. Right. And and I've said, I started drinking more tequila, drinking more and all of that. But I noticed that I was separating myself or having a tough time being the good dad or the good husband, and work wasn't growing, and I was spinning my wheels, and I was getting burned out, and and then you have all that self-doubt that comes into me. And fortunately for me, I had a moment where I looked and I said, oh shit, I know where this path is going.
Yeah.
Right. I saw it, and I was like, holy cow, I got to do, that's not where I want to be. I don't want to go further down into the pit. I want to stop where I'm at. This isn't great, but I don't, what I mean? I got to get out of here, but I need to turn the other way, and I got to figure some way out of it. And I was lucky in mine that I mean, in the sense that lucky, I mean, I started going to all these groups and trying to figure stuff out. And that's where I bumped into the, basically what we made into the legal age operating system, and came up with that idea and to get it all under control. But had I not seen where that path was going and said, I don't want that, I would have trundled down into a path that would probably tore my life apart too, Yeah,
for sure. And it happens all the time. Right. And I don't think you were lucky. I think you saw it, and you were able to admit it. You're like, dude, and that's the key. Like, you were able to check your ego enough that you're able to admit it. And you surrounded yourself with people who would help cross-check you.
Yeah.
Right. That's the key. It's like, if I'd had a single person that would have been able to tell me, hey, bro, this is where this ends for you. So you either do something better, that's where it's going. And then I maybe not have listened then, but I would have backslid even more. And then I'd have been like, oh shit, what he told me would happen is happening. I'm like, oh, okay, this is bad. I need to do something about this. Right. But it's that adjustment. It's that ability to go. But from that, dude, that's where if you don't find yourself in the pit at all, whatever level of the pit you find yourself in, if you don't find yourself there, you never, ever are able to create what you end up creating. Yeah. So the pit's not a problem. It's not like, oh, that sucks. This is life. I did something wrong that I found myself in this place. No, that's life. It's figuring it. It's being able to go. Nothing's created from the peak, right? Because the opposite of the pit would be the peak.
Yeah.
Nothing's created from the peak. That's like me going to the beach.
Because everything's working when you're at the peak.
Everything's beautiful. It's sunny. The waves are crashing. I'm sipping a Mai Tai. It's great. Everything's great. It's the peak. Nothing's but when you slide, or you consciously, and this is what becomes the game really, is choosing the pit. Right? Choosing the pit. When I say that, Shane, give me an example. What does that mean when you would choose a pit? Because I just described a pit that I chose, but I didn't really choose it, but I chose it. That's like not a good, like, how can you leverage this concept?
I would say, if I look at that, right, and mine usually comes to sticking points, right? That's one of my pits I circle back into, because I'm all about growth and growing. And I think 2 or 3 years ago, we were in a pit where we felt like we couldn't grow because we couldn't get staff. We couldn't. I don't say I like head first, like, oh shit, there's a pit, let me jump into it, right? But it's more like, oh crap, I recognize that I'm there, right?
Yeah.
And you recognize it. Once you recognize you're there, then you can come up with a solution to get out of it. But the first key part for me is recognizing and saying, oh, this is a pit. This is not my life. This is not how the rest of my life is going to be. This is a pit. This is a problem. Let me climb out of this stupid pit and get climbing towards where I want to go. Right. So like our pit was, we said we couldn't grow. We struggled for a year finding good employees, and we couldn't put any more money in anything because we couldn't find employees to do the work. So it was, this circle of garbage. But as soon as we recognized and said, this is a stupid story we're telling ourselves, let's work to get out of this area where this is not an issue. Suddenly then, boom, everything opens up, right? As soon as you decide to quit going down, like you said, then you just start climbing and getting out.
Yeah. It's like leverage. It's like a high jumper, right? When a high jumper doesn't come up to the bar and stand upright, right? When you come, there's that moment of contraction and then explosion, which elevates them way higher. And that's the same thing. Literally what you just described is exactly that, right? But it brings up, how do you identify it, right? Because if we know creation comes from the contraction, it's the contraction to expansion. We know that's the thing. That's what we're describing here. But it's the ability to identify it, because that's the key. If you can't identify you are in the pit, then you will just keep going down in the pit.
Yeah.
You'll keep dropping in the pit until you do identify it. And if it takes you years to identify it, guess what? You're now me. Losing my first business, you're that. Losing everything. Losing my whole world, right? Or any point along the line, if you identify it, boom, then you can contract and expand, because now you identify the problems that exist. And when you overcome those problems, you become better than you were before you even started falling into the pit. This is what leverages you higher. So how do you identify it? I know how I do, but look at, and we talked heavily about this in the Legal Edge.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, the biggest thing for me is, one, sort of being aware of the stories we tell ourselves, right? These false ideas that we believe are true.
Right.
And then I look for, when I start to spin my wheels, right? When I'm not making any progress and it seems like I'm just like a hamster on a wheel and nothing's changing. And usually or I'll say nothing's changing for the better, because usually when you're in a pit, not only are you stuck, you're trending down, just because you start to, I don't even know how to explain it, but you're burning up or you're doing something wrong. So it's getting worse and worse. So a lot of it is, we spend a lot of time looking at where are you at, right? What's going on in your life and what are you going to do the next week? And when you start seeing those same things and things are not getting done, that's usually a good sign that you're, if not in a pit, you're headed towards it. Mm-hmm. I mean, simple with your wife, if you say you only got to do a date every week, which, we recommend, but if suddenly you're going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks, you're starting to spin and things are degrading. That's one of the signs that tells me that it's not going good. Another easy sign is, are you drinking more? Are you looking at porn or whatever your flavor of sedation is that you prefer? Or are fires everywhere? That's another, if, you step into the office every day, it's a crisis. I mean, clearly you're in a pit somewhere. You need to figure out what story is keeping you there and work on solving it, even if it's little baby steps.
Yeah. Well, and that's, it's being able to be aware of the stories. It's being able to be aware, like it comes down to something we teach called the code, right? Being able to be honest about the facts. So what you're describing, right? Well, you just described the process, and without a process to do this, I know it's almost impossible to do. Almost impossible.
Because I didn't see where I was stuck for like 5 years, or I knew I was stuck, but I didn't identify there was a pit. And I think until you do that, then you can't accept that that's where you're at, accept that something's got to change, and then even build towards what's going to change. A lot of times you just start running around faster and faster inside your pit, thinking that's going to get you out.
Yep. You do more busy work, you do more things, you put out more fires, you deal with more of that. And the more you do that, the more fires show up. So then the more spinning around like the Tasmanian devil. I totally get that visual, like in this pit, like an actual, like a dirt pit, and the Tasmanian devil's down there and there's fires everywhere. And he's like that's literally, but you're not getting anywhere. There's not any progress that's actually coming out of it. But without a process and without a routine and without a way to do this, it's very hard. It's easy to tell someone, hey, tell the truth, admit where you're at, admit your honesty. How many people lie about that all the time, though, right? Their results in their life, and they're in the pit, but they won't admit it in their body, right? They'll say, oh, I'm pretty good. I look pretty good. I'm doing okay. I'm pretty healthy, right? But then when they stand butt ass naked in front of the mirror, they can't even be honest about what they see.
Right.
They'll
Oh,
lie to
no.
themselves and be like, they won't even look. There's people like, I literally know people that won't not look in the mirror when they get out of the shower naked. I'm all, how does that solve the problem? You have to admit that you're not where you want to go in this whatever, and then do something. Like then you can't. But if you don't ever admit it, if I don't ever say, even if you being stuck, but if you don't ever admit that you're stuck, even that,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, well, you're stuck. Are you? Well, you weren't not making money.
No, I was making $500,000. I mean, it seems like,
So how easily would it have been for you to say, well, I guess this is just as good as it gets?
yeah, that's what I was starting to eat away at everything. Right. And what's crazy is $500,000 was more money than I'd planned when I started the firm to make.
Yeah.
It was more money than anybody I knew made. For me, it was only the fact that I was stuck. I mean, honestly, this sounds terrible. If I'd made 500,000 one year and 510 or 525 the next year, and then 540 or 550, as long as it kept going up, I'm not sure I would have ever seen that it wasn't working.
Right.
Even, the fact that it just didn't move really was what the issue.
Yeah. And which is crazy, right? Because then you're here, and I think you're bringing up a great point, because you're identifying, hey, I'm in a pit. This is a version of a pit, me being stuck in this place. But the rest of the world, when they look at you, do they see you in a pit?
No, not at all.
Not
I thought I was winning. I was crushing it.
Hell yeah. Everyone's looking at you like, dude, Shane's the freaking man. Look at this guy.
I mean,
holy crap. Look, we're so proud of you. Your parents, your friends, look at you. You did so good. You're pulling up in your new car with your nice house, and everybody's like, dude, you're amazing. But inside, and see, this is the hard part. Because if you don't have people around you that are saying, bro, shaking you, there's more. You haven't even scratched the surface. You haven't even scratched the surface. If you don't have people around you doing that, then you will accept the truth that you sit in, not realizing this is actually a slow pathway down to hell. It sounds dramatic. It's not, though, because if it's eating at you at that point and you don't do anything about it, 5 years goes by, 10 years goes by, 15 years goes by, and then you're left with this haunting inside of you, knowing there was more, but you didn't do anything about it.
I was going to say, what is it they say the worst thing is to die and go to heaven and see the man you could have become?
100%.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally, I mean, that'd be the biggest tragedy. The way I like to phrase that is getting to the end of your life and asking the question, what if?
Yeah.
What if? But that's even a better case scenario, because the reality is your drinking would actually intensify to deal with the problem.
It would. That's what I mean. I don't, looking at it, another 5 years without recognizing it would have never worked.
How many wealthy people do you know that make a lot of money, like in the 7-figure range, that you have seen that sedate just like they were somebody who made no money? Like they're so miserable with their existence. Just because they drive a McLaren doesn't change the fact that they are so unhappy with the way things are going. I have seen it more times than I could count.
Yeah.
And there's this delusion that says, see, the outside world would never see that. You would never see the person rolling in the orange McLaren, living in a 10,000 square foot home. You would never see that person and think, well, they're probably depressed, or they're probably stuck, or they're probably in a pit. Their life is clearly not working. Something in their life is off. No, you're going to look at them and be like, man,
they're killing it.
Yeah. And I wish I had some of what they had. I wish I could figure out what they figured out. Right. And it's not true. Like, it's just that reality, that shift inside of that, because we all have our own pits. This is why I can't judge your pit.
Yeah.
I can't look at your pit and be like, Shane, that's not a pit. The hell are you talking about? No different than you could look at a lot of the pits. Maybe it's probably pretty easy to get people to get on board with me on my pit I described. I think most people are going to look at that and be like, yeah, that's a pretty shitty pit. But I have many pits. There's pits that I just, like, I'm overcoming constantly on the daily at sometimes. And I would tell it and maybe describe it to somebody else, and they're going to look at me and be like, man, that's not a pit.
Well, I think the better you are at identifying your pits, or when you start spinning your wheels, the better you identify that, you can course correct faster, and that's part of what we talk about, right? Evaluate where you're at, tell the truth, live by the code, and when you're telling yourself that truth faster and more frequently, I don't think you slide as far. your pits aren't as deep usually
100%. 100%.
because if you don't look up and say, wow, I'm 100 pounds overweight. You're like, oh shit, I've gained 20 pounds. I need to stop, or this is not working.
Or I've gained 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. It's the intensity at which you can shift and flip. It's like making a sword, right? You know how they put layers and layers and layers and layers, all right, and makes it strong and strength. That's the same thing with your pits, right? If you spend all this time on this one and not identify typical people that don't have a frame and a process for this, it will take some of their pits, they're in them for years, and then they'll eventually try to cycle out, and they maybe go through really 2 or 3 pits their entire life. Right, where they cycled back up to status quo, and they never really grew, but they cycled to status quo. Like the intensity of what you're talking about is it's choosing to identify the pits as quick as you possibly can. When you see you're in it, you're like, oh, cool, I can shift out of this, boom, I can build out of this, boom, and you do it over and over and over and over. And as you do that, like we've been talking about shooting all the other shows we've ever done, right? The simple success swinging singles, right? Being able to constantly do little moves that drive you forward, and it's literally identifying pits. And sometimes it's choosing to choosing to see the pit as a pit so that you can leverage it forward for something more. It could be a limiting belief story that you have, right? It could be just the way you're seeing it. It could be that you're stuck financially, even though you're doing well compared to what the world says. Compare what you were doing then to what you're doing now. Dramatic.
Oh yeah, huge
they're polar opposites, right? But you could have settled in that pit there, and you would not have realized what you've realized.
You've given up all of what you could have, but you could have had to keep what you have, I guess.
Yeah, and it's as simple as being able to identify that there's a pit, acknowledging it, right? Admitting it, and then finding the process or the pathway to build out of it. And to constantly do that, to choose the drift into the shift, and the drift into the shift, you constantly are rising up. Kind of like a stock market where the stock goes up, right? It starts on one side. It's not like this constant curve. It's like
up and down. Yeah.
That's exactly. And it's when you drop down that you explode up better than you were before. So if you could do that every day, oh shoot. Like if I could have a minor little pit every day, and I could leverage it and springboard, which means today on a Wednesday, I'm better than I was Tuesday, but I'm going to be better tomorrow because I'm going to leverage the negative whatever to leverage the pit to grow. Man, if I could do that every day, think how fast I grow compared to, well, I'm going to do that 2 or 3 times a year or 2 or 3 times in my life.
And I think, you talk about you can do it alone, but doing it with other people is so much easier and helpful, and they can tell you you're in a pit usually a lot quicker than you can.
For sure. I know you've experienced this. I've experienced this when I've been in a mentor relationship and I've been the one being mentored. I'm the guy kind of telling, hey, here's what I'm seeing. And then I have somebody else with a different perspective comes in and is like, dude, what about this? What about this? And you're like, oh, it's like a light bulb. And you're like, I didn't realize that. Holy crap, I see that. Oh my gosh, let's go. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm gonna go build this thing. I'm gonna do this thing. And it completely changes the trajectory of the growth. Everything you were going, everything shifts in those moments. Doing that on your own, is it possible? I'm not to say it's not. I'm not, someone could probably figure it out. I mean, I'm sure there's unicorns too. I just haven't seen one.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, maybe they exist. Maybe they're real and we just don't know where they're at. Maybe they're in the ocean. Maybe they swim under the water. We don't see it. Right. So could it happen? Yes. Is it likely? No.
Very unlikely. It's super hard. I mean,
no different than it is statistically possible to walk into a room and all of the oxygen has moved to the corner of the room and you suffocate and die. Scientifically, that's actually a probability. That could happen.
Yeah.
Now, what are the odds of that happening? I don't know if you've ever walked in any rooms and you realize that one side of the room has more oxygen than the other.
I want to wander to that room real fast.
I feel like that's not really going to happen. I'm not worried about it. And I think this is literally, I know that's exaggerating it, but it's about the same thing, right? Doing this on your own is almost impossible. You can do it, but you're going to find these drifts and these shifts that happen occasionally. You won't see them pitch to the peak versus being able to literally leverage a process that we've built inside the Legal Edge that does this every single day.
Like my group I go to Dragon Con with, they're great at that on the body phase, right? Because to march with them, it's the 300 Spartans, so you have to look a certain way from the movie. Yeah. And it's pretty easy every year. I mean, you can't drift so far if every year your buddies are going to be talking to you. and they actually have a core group inside there who will reach out to you and be like, hey, dude, I know you're posting you want to walk with us. If so, you best tighten up your stuff real quick. Right? You've fallen further than you think, but that's an easy, group to identify it. But obviously it's harder in business and things like that.
Yeah, that's why you got to surround yourself with like-minded people that are doing the same thing, right? Which is hence the reason that the legal edge even exists, right? It's to
Right.
take these and draw you into an environment where you can identify these pits as quick as you possibly can, leverage, shift up, and I can't think of anything else that says any better than taking a firm from where they're at to literally to the 7, 8, 9.
Oh yeah, no, it's huge.
And
And doing it by yourself, you don't have anybody to compare it to. You don't have anybody to tell you can do it. Certainly, you don't have anybody who can tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
But also it keeps you from settling, right? To hit that point and say, I'm making a couple $100,000, and you could feel great in your little town. Mm-hmm. You're the big dog making a couple $100,000, and you don't even realize you would just focus on growing. You could double that, and by being around other people who are like, no, you can make more money doing it this way, and you continue to grow.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. Well, as we wrap up today's show, Shane, you got any final thoughts you want to leave everybody with?
I think that's just one of the benefits of being in a group is somebody who can smack you a little faster. Mm-hmm. The speed with which you can see I'm not making progress or I'm stopping or this is not working dramatically goes up when you can compare and interact with other people who are also trying to grow and get better versus just being on your own, like on an iceberg,
Yeah.
or an island. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So take a look at your world. Take a look at in this case, let's just look at our business, right? Look at your firm. Where in your firm are you stuck, stagnant, things aren't working that you're avoiding? You're not acknowledging that you're actually in a pit there. You're not acknowledging that things aren't quite where you want them to do. So look at that. Is it in your marketing? Is it in your sales process? Is it in fulfillment? Is it backside? Is it your back end operations? Like, where's it at? Identify the pit that's sitting in front of you that you're just not looking at. And it's not yet a fire. It's not yet burning in front of your face because you're dealing with something else that's burning in front of your face. But what's that thing that is there? It's gnawing at you, but you won't admit it. You won't acknowledge it. And then your action item is very simple. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. Like, admit that it's happening. Once you've been able to admit that it's happening, I have zero doubt in my mind you'll at least have one idea that you can do, one simple action that you could take towards that to start to dig you out of the pit of that thing that's not working. So identify that thing, figure it out, walk through this process so you can start taking that one simple action that's actually going to motivate and push you forward to actually get out of the pit so you can start to live what Shane and I have talked about for the last half hour in this podcast. So we appreciate you guys being here on the show. If you got value from today's show, please share it up. Share it up with another attorney or another person that you know that's going to get value from this, that may or may not know that they're in a pit. They may or may not know that they can leverage this environment that way. So if you got value, share it with somebody else. It's how it helped the show grow. Shane and I are doing this from just the love of our hearts to be able to take some of the value and things that we've done over the last 2 decades of our growth as business owners and utilizing that to help somebody else. So share it up in that case. If you're not over on YouTube, get over there on YouTube. And if you are on YouTube, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe onto the channel. We appreciate it. It helps us grow. It helps more people get the message. And any of our coaching, right? Anything you want to get involved, take some of these concepts we talk about a little bit deeper, head over to legaledgecoaching.com where you'll get into conversation with Shane or I, and we can kind of unravel some of the mysteries of how on earth you build an 8 and a 9-figure firm. So that's all I got for you today. Appreciate you guys being here on the show. This is Trevor White signing off.
Talk to y'all later.